and DeFi, greatest in the world, and they finally about to see why. What you know about XRD? I'm smart money, I ain't never on a decline. What you know about NFTs? It's not just Ace, when you finally gonna realize you need scalability, need more utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline, building the future, I feel like a savage.
Hello and welcome. I am Piers Ridyard, CEO of RDXWorks, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. This is our podcast, The DeFi Download, a show about decentralized finance and all things crypto, where we dive into the details of the projects, assets and services that are powering the DeFi revolution. Today, I have Bruno, founder of Remark. Remark is a set of smart contract standards that allow NFTs 2.0s to exist, allowing the industry to elevate NFTs past just monkey pictures. Bruno, great to have you on board.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
So let's just start with, how did Remark come about? Like what was the origin story of Remark?
Well, I was working with the Web3 Foundation on the Kusama network at the time, and that was 2020. I felt the NFT craze ramping up again. That was when the NFT wave 2 was ramping up. And Kusama was always kind of this crazy chain, experimental chain, like an experiment, incentivized testnet, basically. Well, at least it started that way, like a canary network. And I felt like it would be a shame if a chain that got its name from an artist and that is focused on chaos didn't have NFTs. Right. At the same time, I was really frustrated with what NFTs were. So basically just pictures and static media, and wanted to try and do more with them. So these forces kind of combined, and that Kusama didn't really have any incumbents. And so I was free to develop and ideate on something completely new without having to struggle with the flow of the existing marketplaces or whatever.
Right.
And so I just came up with a way to put NFTs onto a chain that doesn't really have smart contracts. That was quite hacky, and but it was fun. It was kind of very, really very kind of hacker culture stuff that I really enjoyed. And eventually it turned out that people were really interested in that. And I just then kind of onboarded some more people. We formed a team, and fast forward 2.5 years later, we're a team of 25 people.
So you went from being like, how can I hack NFTs into a experimental piece of layer one technology that doesn't currently have any smart contracts at all, to building sort of a new set of standards that sort of cross-platform. I mean, you guys have just had, or recently had, your Ethereum EIPs approved. You have a bunch of those, 5773, 6059, 6220, 6381, 6454, all approved in the Ethereum ecosystem. So like, how did you go from like layer one hacking around, like just trying to make NFTs work, to building a bunch of like really robust standards for a new concept of NFTs? What was that journey?
Yeah, that was kind of hard. The first thing that I built originally on Kusama, and it's actually a layer 0 chain, that's why it doesn't have smart contracts, because it's designed to make other chains communicate with each other. So it was never meant to have logic, but I kind of forced it onto it because there was no other way to deploy logic in the Polkadot ecosystem. So I had to kind of force it. So then, like, when that started happening, so I figured, like, okay, what else can we do with this? And we decided to launch this collection where you can emote on NFT eggs and influence what hatches from them. And people...
I remember this. There was the What's in the Egg campaign from, is it KBL or...
No, I think that was another project, because right around that time, a lot of people started playing with this egg NFT idea for some reason. I don't know why that took off. I think it was because it's around Easter. And so what we did was, actually, you would emote on your or anybody else's egg, and that will influence what will hatch from it. So that was the first bit of...
What does emote mean?
Through in there. So literally drop emotes like you would in a chat message or something, thumbs up, fire extinguisher, eggplant emoji, whatever you want, onto people's NFT eggs. And if you dropped a lot of fire emojis, for example, so you could only do it once per account. So if you drop a fire emoji and then click fire emoji again, you just unfired it. So you had to, there was a social mechanic where you had to talk people into giving you their emojis if you wanted to skew an egg in a certain direction. So if an egg would get a lot of fires from a lot of different people, there's a high chance that the bird would be made of fire when it hatches. If it was given a lot of tennis rackets, there's a high chance that it would actually hold a tennis racket in its hand as a secondary NFT. And so that's where the secondary NFT and the equipables nature of it came from, where we actually came up with a way for NFTs to own other NFTs and to make those held NFTs actually completely independent NFTs. They just happen to be also equipable into another one. And so as we were thinking about this more and more, we kind of standardized this entire framework into a set of open standards that anybody could reuse. And so a bunch of games started launching on this and reusing this concept and just implementing it into their own stuff. And so, like half a year into this, we started building the EVM compatible standards for this so that Solidity developers could also use this. Up until then, it was all just based on hacks, essentially stuff like colored coins from back in the day that Bitcoin would use to put NFTs onto the Bitcoin blockchain. This is the approach that we originally took, but then eventually we evolved it so that we now have different versions of the RMRK standard, of the NFT2.0 standard for different ecosystems. One of those is the recently published EVM standards in 5 different EIPs. Yeah.
Got it. I think one of the most fun things, like one of the greatest things that is wonderful when you're building something is when you actually have a use case and you're building technology for it, you sort of end up unpeeling these layers of like, what I would say, you get more specific in what you want to implement, but you also get a better idea of what the abstract version of that is, right? So you sort of like, I need to build these things, these set of things for this thing, but now I see that if I have these like Lego pieces, then these Lego pieces together can create a much more robust set of standards for which I can create something. And I think that, that's clear what's happened with Remark as well, because you went from going, I wanted to build a game that had this concept of equipables to something much more abstract. So maybe let's talk about the idea of NFTs owning NFTs or nested NFTs plus equipables. Like, why are these two concepts so powerful, and what can you do with them once you have these two concepts?
So the really, really obvious use case is gaming, where you can just put equipment into characters and replicate the typical RPG mechanics or whatever you want from traditional games. So that's the obvious one. But then you can also kind of really expand this into putting entire game logic on chain, because if you have like a game avatar in an RPG game, and like in the olden days of Baldur's Gate and other similar D&D type RPGs that we used to play, you had this concept of, for example, a wizard that has to learn spells before sleeping and then sleep on them to use them the next day. And this was all managed in the database of the game. But with this stuff, you can actually put this character progression system on chain. So for example, an avatar can actually have an NFT inside of it that is his brain. And that brain itself can have slots for different skills or spells into which you can equip them. And so as the avatar levels up, the brain can change and become capable of hosting 3 skills instead of 2, or 4 skills instead of 3, and so on. And so it's all NFTs all the way down to the bottom. So it's like an avatar is an NFT, the brain is an NFT, the skill is an NFT, and maybe a skill's attribute or an like an effect change is also an NFT that you can find, equip, or train, or learn, and so on. And all of these can be transferable or non-transferable. So the brain is obviously a non-transferable NFT inside another NFT, whereas a piece of armor will be a transferable NFT inside another NFT. So this is the obvious use case. But then you have like a ton of different things that become possible when you abstract this enough and when you make it generic enough and unopinionated enough, where you can have, a film, a movie can be an NFT, and it can have a slot for subtitles, and you can equip different languages of subtitles so that it becomes active. And so all the content is contained inside of that one NFT. It can also have a slot for the audio track, so you can just swap out the audio track and you get a new audio for the entire movie. That's like the power of this multimedia standard that we have, is that you can have any type of NFT inside any other type of NFT. And once you augment that with the ability to even have fungible tokens inside of non-fungible tokens, it kind of really opens the door to some fun experimentation with data structures that we've been used to in centralized databases and servers that are now no longer necessary because of this.
Could you give a couple of examples of that?
Yeah, so like you can imagine a housed mortgage being an NFT that in itself contains a photo album of the last reconstruction project, that in itself contains the PDF of the energy certificate of the house, that also references another NFT that is actually the mortgage of the past owner. And so you have the full record in one NFT, not scattered about on 1,000 different wallets or servers. You have it all on chain. It's all there. Now, this enables you to actually literally take a loan against your house on chain in a matter of seconds versus having to go through mountains of paperwork and stuff. Now, naturally, this does depend on a country actually recognizing blockchain as a legitimate data source, which again means that in most corners of the world, thousands of people would get fired who are just essentially paper pushers and stamp hitters right now. But this requires a massive shift in mindset, which I think is coming anyway with the advent of AI and the obsolescence of many jobs. So I think a lot of countries are actually going to have to start thinking in this direction. Another use case is you can have different... So this is like a really real world bound use case where it's connecting with the real world. But also you can have things like permissions and reputation inside of different NFTs. So you can have your avatar, like we call it reputational avatars. You can have your kind of main NFT that then collects reputation based on what you do on chain or off chain in some applications. So for example, on forums, which I hope are going to make a resurgence, you have...
It looks like they might be.
Yeah. So you have like an account that has certain permissions to moderate certain subgroups and categories. And maybe your permissions will alter based on your performance in those categories. So if your replies constantly get upvoted, or if you're very active, you might get the permission to occasionally flag or moderate some group or category. And so this is all also reflectable inside of those things. So, but why would you do this if you have a database? Well, because now you can take that reputation and that permission set into any other application. I can literally check what you've been doing, how active you've been, and how valuable of a community member you are to give you automatically these permissions somewhere else in my community, which is incredibly powerful in terms of taking your time and your time investment with you somewhere else where it's also usable or even monetizable.
Right. I think that sort of opens up some really interesting questions around how far down the database stack do you end up making things NFTs versus how much of it you do just host on a server for a particular service. Do you have a view on when it starts getting a bit like, should I have my chat history as NFTs, or is that probably too far down the stack?
That's probably too far down the stack. I mean, I guess it depends on what that chat history is about. If you have Congress members chatting about them selling stocks based on alpha they got, then this would be good to have as an NFT so that you can prosecute them later. But if you have something like a private chat history, I don't think that ever has to be, forever logged anywhere. And if you really do need to have proof that a chat happened, you can always just hash that chat history and save that hash in your NFT with another NFT, and then just use it for verification purposes rather than reproduction.
So do you see sort of front ends getting lighter, essentially, front ends becoming much thinner as a result of this kind of way in which you can create identity and reputation as an on-ledger object?
I certainly hope so. I've been incredibly disappointed with web development in general in the last 10 years, how it's strayed from just generally being able to write a website in Notepad on your desktop to needing a full chain of 75 transpilers and compilers and 12 hours a day of waiting for Vercel to compile on AWS, where you have basically 20 single points of failure in between your app and your user, which is completely antithetical to Web3 and just generally being able to run your own stuff in any way. So I do hope that this encourages people to build UIs that can be simply, Command S saved to your desktop and used as is, like we used to be. 20 years ago, and I'm probably aging, showing my age here, but 20 years ago, whatever site you visited online, you could visit it offline by just going into your temp folder of your browser, and it's there, it's saved, it's cached. You could just use it. I hope that this comes back. I hope that we can again just save websites on our desktop and just double click them and they work, because they're reading straight from the blockchain. And if I'm running my own blockchain node at home, which is far easier than people make it out to be, that website should just be able to connect to it. And I should have access to a decentralized Web3 at home versus relying on a dozen middlemen to allow me this access.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a lot here. I think let's just sort of bring it back to simple Web3 topics for now. One of the ones that I think is fascinating is you sort of said, well, if NFTs can own NFTs and fungible tokens, then you're kind of talking about a wallet, right? That sounds like a wallet. So what is the difference between the standards that you're creating for being able to NFTs being able to own NFTs and fungible tokens and just the concept of a wallet?
Essentially nothing really. In a way, these NFTs can be treated as account abstraction, which is all the rage right now. So you could technically, there is this EIP that just defines the functions that a smart wallet should have, like a smart contract-based wallet should have. If you just add those functions to an NFT 2.0 standard like ours, that's it. You have a wallet that is also an NFT. Now, you should probably lock that NFT into that wallet so that you can't really transfer it around. But there are methods around this semi-transferability as well. So there's things to do here that really solve all the account recovery problems and so on. But in general, NFTs 2.0 make for an amazing, amazing wallet, in part because they can collect this reputation, which is both visual and utilitarian. So you get your swag, basically, and you can show people how active you've been. Maybe you've LP'd 100K for 6 months in a row in Yearn, and so now you got a cool Yearn hat for your avatar. So now you can equip that, and that's swag, and you can have that as your PFP, so that's cool. But more than that, you have the reputational token that goes along with it that is frozen to your wallet. And now Yearn might give you beta access to their new UI once it's ready, just because you have the reputation of being their power user, And this is all in your wallet, which is basically your NFT, your avatar. So essentially, whatever you do on-chain or off-chain stays with you. You own your experience. You take it with you always.
Yeah, there's a real converging of three things here, actually. I always thought that there was going to be a converging of two things, but you're actually starting to make me think there might be a converging of three things. So the two things I always said would converge was social media and finance. Like, I call it social finance, but like it's, but like to me, it feels obvious in the world that we have today, where what we're seeing happening in Web3 communities and DeFi communities is the overlapping of social, the concept of community and the concept of investment, or the concept of financial products. It seems like, for what you're talking about, there's also the overlap of gaming, and that people have always talked about gamification of things, but you're sort of taking this to a new level. You're taking this concept of reputation and participation, but like to make these things desirable, to make the hat from Yearn desirable, Yearn's got to actually think about game mechanics as well. They can't just be like, oh, we'll make a hat. Like, the hats don't become desirable on their own by themselves just because they're rare. They become desirable because of the way in which people have associate fun and status with a thing. And that game dynamic is actually really hard to build. Do you think that we're going to start to see sort of game skill sets starting to come into DeFi as well, and people start to build these things around this?
Yes, absolutely. So I may be approaching this whole thing from my own personal angle a bit too much. We'll see, because I'm a gamification nut. If you put me in any kind of game and give me a lot of question marks to collect on the map, I'm not going to rest until I have all of them. So maybe I'm a little bit of a psycho in terms of gamification and completionist there.
Right.
But I think that people really resonate with this because we've seen this in action. So in the Kusama blockchain, which is basically the world's biggest DAO, and it also has auto-enforceable votes, where whatever people vote in, that's what actually happens on chain. It's not like snapshot voting where the developers still get to decide like, nah, we're not going to do that, or yes, we are. With Kusama, what people vote in, that's what happens. Whether it's a treasury distribution, an actual runtime change or upgrade, or forkless upgrade, or a variable change in the chain, whatever you want, that's what happens at a certain block. There's no way around it. And so there, as with any DAO, we had extremely low participation, like just low across the board. When we added there was this experiment, Proof of Chaos, which essentially created NFTs that people would get for voting on proposals. And you could equip those onto your trophy shelf. So there was an NFT that was a trophy shelf, and you get these NFTs that you can put onto the trophy shelf. Participation doubled just by that alone. And so it's important to know that, as with any DAO right now, they're all governed by whales, And so, of course, anybody who's not a whale is directly disincentivized from participating because the UX friction is high enough. And so then you come in with your 3 tokens against 30 billion tokens from a whale, and of course you're not going to bother voting because it doesn't really matter. But just by adding gamification, we already doubled that. So now if we further augment that by removing token weights from the equation and actually replacing it with accountability or reputation, we actually have a hope of saving DAOs. Because if everybody, even the whales, start at 0 reputation and everybody has to participate to improve their voting weight by just literally collecting the reputation of having voted, then over time, even the smallest token holder can become much more powerful than the whale who just sits around and waits for their tokens to appreciate or keeps collecting interest and therefore more token weight, more voting weight, right? So we've seen this gamification work. And I think it's not that hard to kick it off. Maybe there is some balancing issues to work out. And if you're building a game, that's much more important than if you have a protocol like Yearn that can deliver a cool hat. But I think it's actually very easy to get these prestigious, because it's not really easy to mess this up. Like if Yearn gives that hat out too freely, then nobody's going to want it. But if they give it to a select subset of users who only did one specific thing, they're just going to encourage those users to do that specific thing. We saw it with the shadowy supercoder NFTs that everybody wanted when they launched those. So it was just an NFT to indicate that you've been there from the beginning, that you've done something in the ecosystem. And they've never amounted to any value. They've never given people any airdrops. They've never actually, given you access to any sort of alpha channels or whatever, but people still wanted them just as a badge of proof that they were there at the beginning. So now if you further augment that with gamification and swag and everything else and cross-collection tradability so that my Yearn hat is now equipable on this avatar and on this avatar, which is default in NFTs 2.0, you kind of trigger this global item economy and this frenzy of, just that one hat doesn't have to be... So let's say that there's 50,000 users and you issue 100 hats. So the rarity of those hats is 150,000. But if there's a new collection of avatars that is made also compatible with those hats, which again comes default with NFTs 2.0, then the rarity of the hat is 100 in 100,000. And so now the rarity of the hat has become even greater. And so you trigger this frenzy of a global item economy where people want everything from everyone. And I think this is the key to gamifying and incentivizing users to actually come in and join the Web3 movement.
So there's sort of 2 levels to this. There's the technical level, like this works from a code point of view, but like an NFT from a code point of view is not a very complicated thing. Versus the NFT from an art point of view. And when I say complicated, I don't mean that it's not complicated to code. I mean that making 2 bits of code work together as code is different from making 2 bits of art work together as art. So if I have a hat and then I have one set of art and then another set of art, like then if I want to make my new collection compatible with equipables, does that not start to go into some very large numbers of generative arts that I have to do then? I'm starting to get like some really big numbers there.
Doesn't have to be. It depends on where you scale and how. With this tech that we have, you just upload a new asset to the same NFT. There's no airdrops, there's no wallet spam, there's nothing really. If you want to make your hat compatible with another collection, you just make the same NFT in the art style of that new collection and add that art style to the existing NFT, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It'll automatically become compatible and equipable into all the other stuff. That's fairly easy to do. Code-wise, in terms of enabling something with that hat, I would like to make a very clear distinction between reputational and equipable NFTs, because if you do something special for Yearn, they will give you the reputation, but I think the reputational NFT that you get itself should not be the equipable one, because you want to encourage a global item economy by allowing tradability, but you don't want to trade that reputation. So if you do something for Yearn, you should get two NFTs. One that is reputational, aka non-transferable inside of your NFT. That can be a badge, a chest medal, or whatever else that you cannot move. And the other one should be the Yearn hat, for example. So what this achieves is it keeps the reputation with you, so it's easy to integrate code-wise into other protocols. A protocol will just check, does he have this badge or no? That's it. At the same time, it's going to make that hat tradable on the open market, where somebody who's not familiar with it will ask you, whoa, where did you get that hat? And you get to say, I got it from Yearn by doing this and this. And now you have this cross-pollination of user bases and player bases where people find out about something cool elsewhere and then, I'll go check that out. So now you have a massive tide that rises all the boats because everybody's working together on the same global item economy. It's no longer a zero-sum game where everybody's competing as soon as they launch something new.
Yeah. I mean, Bruno, you're basically talking about a generation, so my generation, your generation, generations after us have grown up with digital gaming and have grown up with the concept of missions and things that we have to go out and do, and then turning that loose on the DAO economy, which I think is fascinating. What's going to come out of that? What, like from a going from the theoretical to the practical, where are you seeing the main uptake of the RMRK-standard? Like who's really like understanding it and running with it well at the moment?
Right now, game developers. There's a lot of games being made with this, and already working on cross-collection compatibility. So taking items from one game or one metaverse to another and just having them be compatible. This is, I think, my fault because I've been using games as an example for this for a very long time. But as soon as I started talking about other stuff, people started, realizing that, maybe this other stuff also makes sense. So I'm trying to really aggressively push these reputational avatars now so that people start healing the DAO infrastructure with reputation. Hopefully that's going to take off as well.
I mean, it worked in Web 2. I don't see why it wouldn't work in Web 3, right? That's how Reddit runs. That's how many of these massive communities run. They run on reputation, and people care about their reputation almost more than anything else, right? Like their reputation in those spaces, and that's what makes them good places to be and largely work well.
Exactly. Yeah, Reddit is an excellent example. Like the karma that some people have attained technically doesn't mean anything to them in a very literal sense, but it would hurt their soul if they lost it because it's their time invested in that account, and Reddit might give them some perks, some moderation perks or whatever for that, but they are isolated in that one little corner. Whereas if you have that reputation as something you can take with you into other protocols, into other systems, granted, this puts Reddit at a disadvantage in terms of maybe potentially losing active users to something else that incentivizes that reputation more. But on a grander scale, if they open up their mind and think about it in a more, we all win kind of mindset, you can actually augment that really nicely, especially with their Reddit avatar project, with the little aliens that you can compose with different parts and so on. this is tailor-made for this system. They should wholeheartedly adopt this, because now they have these reputational avatars, these little avatars that can have reputation in them based on the accounts that users have on Reddit, and have tradable swag between these little avatars that they can now take elsewhere. So this is just upgrading the game for everybody, I feel.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So outside of Remark, you're also building a marketplace, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have to have a place on which to demonstrate this NFT 2.0 stuff. So we've built Singular, which is singular.app. That's our marketplace where you can trade these and mint these NFTs. It's almost ready to launch on EVM. So we're going to be supporting a bunch of EVM chains out of the door. Right now, it's still using the Hacky method on Kusama. So this is going to migrate to like legacy soon, and then we're going to be focusing on the Singular EVM experience to spread across many chains. And this is just literally to show people what you can do with these NFT 2.0 things. It's not meant to be like, for example, if you're building a platform on which you have empty music sheets with slots for back vocals, lead guitar, bass guitar, drums, whatever. And then you can mint these different subtracks and equip them into the slots into this one music NFT. And then every time the music NFT is sold, royalty is distributed evenly to everybody who contributed one of those tracks. And then maybe you want to make that track equipable into your avatar later on, so that whenever your avatar is on screen, the background music plays from that composable track.
You got entry music.
Exactly. All of that is possible, but that's probably not what you want to try and do on Singular. So Singular is just this generic marketplace for this stuff. But the very app-specific functionality that you want to do that makes it UX friendly, you probably want to have a custom UI for. So Singular is very much like the OpenSea of NFTs 2.0. Whereas we expect people to build really cool stuff as they experiment more with the standard and start building with it. Because really, just the imagination is your limit here. Any data structure that people are used to from the old world is now possible in the new world. And it's standardized so well that it's just going to show up on the Singular marketplace. So, whatever you want to do. If you want to put financial instruments into NFTs and just gamble on them while they, a potion flask fills up as your futures mature or whatever, versus composable music tracks and metaverse lands that can contain houses and avatars, all of that is just based on the same standard, which is going to appear on Singular and render properly. So we just want people to really go wild and experiment.
And what will make, like, how do you measure success for Singular? Is success for Singular many marketplaces for the remark standard springing up, or is it Singular becoming the place that everyone goes and trades these things?
Well, ideally for Remark as the company, success would be many people come to Singular to trade, because that's our only source of income. But I personally, as an idealist of this technology, would like to see as many adoptions of this as possible. I would be very happy to see, OpenSea upgrade to NFTs 2.0. I would be very happy to see this technology adopted across many different aspects. I'm very happy to see games that are building on this standard develop their own in-game marketplace, which completely bypasses Singular and basically takes away our commission chunks for this equipment and gear and whatever you craft in there and so on. But I'm happy to see them use this, because I know this shows me that it works. This shows me that it makes sense to them. And so the more people use this, the more I like this technological spread. My goal has always been to just overwrite the simple monkey JPEGs with something smarter, something better. The company's goal is, of course, to try and survive and make money. But yeah, I like to see it being spread out as much as possible.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's surprisingly difficult to get the world to adopt an idea, even if it's a really, really good one.
It is.
What do you see as being, over the next year, what do you see as being the biggest challenge for you guys? What's the biggest hurdle to get over now that you've got the standards done? Awesome. What's next?
Well, now we need to push out the marketplace with support for those standards and then just build tooling around it. So the more custom use cases and fun stuff that we support, launch, demonstrate, the more successful we'll be. So that's our focus next. But in terms of challenge, I would say we've never been much of a marketing engine. We've never had the money even to throw at marketing, to throw at these publications, to publish these PRs and CoinDesks and everything. And so we've kind of struggled with that a lot. And this kind of falls into the idea of it being very difficult to let people know about a new good idea and get them to adopt it. This marketing is something that I'm kind of fundamentally opposed to. It kind of triggers some sort of gag reflex in me when I hear blockchain marketing. But I'm seeing that it's unfortunately, sadly necessary to just force it down people's throats and breed familiarity through exposure. So we'll have to work on that actively.
Yeah. I mean, it's the I think the biggest lie in tech is often like build a better mousetrap and they'll beat a pass to your door. It's like it's not true at all. Like it isn't just about building a better mousetrap. It's being able to create a narrative around that mousetrap for the world that captures the popular imagination. I think NFT 2.0 is a great naming, like that instantly has got like a snappy idea to it. Oh, it's like NFTs but better. What does that mean? And NFTs are clearly going through their sort of like trough of disillusionment at the moment, which in many ways is the best time to introduce a new idea because you have the least noise and the people who are most committed to sort of making sure that's successful in the future, because they if they're still here, they believe in it, right? All of the people who like bought, as you say, monkey pictures, and then like when the bottom fell out, they went, well, fuck this, and left. They're the ones that are the least helpful for the next phase. But it's really fascinating. Remark and Singular and all of the work that you and the team has done. It's super impressive. And as we've discussed before, I'd love to get Radix compatible with the NFT 2.0 standards as well. I think that's going to be a really interesting piece of work. It's something that we've looked at, ever since we spoke in Croatia. How can we make nestable NFTs possible as well as just a single NFT standard? And I think you guys have done incredible work around that. So huge congratulations, and I hope this year's a big one for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, if the Radix team needs any help integrating with this and just making it compatible, we're open to any collaborations. We just want to see it on as many environments as possible.
Awesome. Bruno, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been wonderful talking with you. And if people want to get involved, do you want them to go to Remark? That's RMRK.app, or do you want people to go to Singular first?
Yeah, so RMRK.app is fine as a landing point. You have the links in the header there. Follow those. Singular.app if you want to experiment with NFTs 2.0 and follow our journey. We are really close to launching the EVM compatible marketplace, so that's going to be super fun. And if you want to join us on this journey, please do.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you.
More utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline. Building the future, I feel like a savage.